Mark Montecalvo. I really enjoy talking to technicians, to technical people. Mark is a specialist in hyper automation. Really great conversation. A really well rounded young man. He makes beer and does some other things. Really great conversation with Mark. Mark works at ConnectWise and is involved with hyper automation. I did this recording at IT Nation, Automation Nation in downtown Tampa at ConnectWise headquarters on their first floor. Really great conversation with Mark, and I appreciate it. This was recorded in early September, 2024, all part of Automation Nation. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pins, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word, discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission? How do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Oh, Mark, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here with us. Tell me, I always hear about brewing beer. It always tastes so good. I have no patience for this. Tell me what the process is.
Well, it depends. So you can either do a extract brew for home brewing, or you can do a full mash. Your extract brew, you basically has like a syrup that you dissolve in some water and boil that down. Add in your hops after, and crash it, put in the yeast, and then it goes to town. Yeah, full mash.
It sounds like soda.
It kind of is like soda. It just needs to ferment after, and you're done.
Wow.
When you do a full mash, you take your grain, you crush it up, you boil that, basically steeping it like you're making tea. And then same thing, you bring that off into your fermenter, cool it down, add in your yeast, and let it ferment, and you're good to go.
But people always tell me the big secret is you got to use good water.
Yep. So typically people use reverse osmosis water or distilled water, and then they add in their own minerals and salts and things to get the right composition. So different breweries in different areas of the country have different tasting beer because a lot of times they'll use city water. And so you can actually get reverse osmosis water, so there's nothing in it. You can get the chemical compositions from, say, Sierra Nevada, and you can add in the right types of salt mixtures so that you get a water base that tastes like their beer. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Because you always hear, I know you're from New England like myself, from Rhode Island, but you always hear like the pizza in New York is better because of the water.
Same thing, just like the bagels, right?
The bagels, yeah, the bagels are the other big one, yeah.
Yep.
And we have a restaurant like right here who claims that they bring water down from New York, don't they? They say
do.
They do it, yeah.
They do. Then it's delicious pizza, and they're gigantic.
They're big slices, yeah. How long have you been doing that? The beer brewing?
Been brewing beer for about 5 years, 6 years.
That's fun. So do you give it to family? Do you give it to...
Yeah, family, friends. We have people come over. I've got a keezer with 6 taps, and so,
I don't know that term, keezer.
A keezer. It is a kegerator. It's like that. It's a freezer, like a chest freezer that's been converted into a kegerator, and it's got 6 taps.
Very cool.
Yeah, pretty good.
Father's from Italy, so it was wine all the time. They're not beer drinkers over there. In southern Italy, they're not. And so it was very common for us to have a lot of wine, and it would just be that. They'd give it away, and they'd have it with meals and everything. But that's really cool. And you still do it now?
Yep. Wow. My wife and I will do it at home.
Wow. That is really, really cool. And why 3D printing?
So, I don't know. I'm geeky, and I like to build things.
Yeah.
So I'm always playing with small electronics and just making things. And so 3D printing just kind of went with that. I got to build my printer. I got to then print things. I make little puzzles for the kids, or like all kinds of goofy stuff. I've probably printed more test prints than I've printed actual objects.
Right. But they're using it to like build houses.
Oh yeah, those get crazy. That's definitely not the
Right.
kind of level I'm doing. Mine's all small things, like a lot of, like I said, I've been playing with a lot of magnetic puzzle boxes where you need to like move magnets on the outside to unlock hidden locks inside. So yeah.
And what is the? Can I still say toner? Like, what does that cause?
Oh no.
What's that
So
toner?
no, toner's the regular printer.
Right.
This is a filament.
Filament.
Yeah, and so you've got all kinds of different filaments. You have, PLA, you have PETG, ASA, all kinds of things. Yeah.
Very cool. And how do you go about building it? You have got to have some 3D rendering software.
Yep. So I use Fusion 360, which is made by Autodesk, and it's just CAD software. It's free for personal use, or you can pay a crazy exorbitant amount of money and have the professional one. And it's just 3D modeling. You can pick it up pretty quick if you're, if you're techie. You just do some YouTube videos and give it a weekend of like concentrating on it, and you'll get the basics. So, like I built, I needed some clips for dog gate that hook onto the wall.
Come on.
And I had 2 of them, but I needed 2 more. So I took the original 2 I had, took some measurements off of it, spent like half an hour in CAD, made a copy of it,
Yeah.
and then just printed it back
It's
out.
amazing.
Yeah.
Where's it going? Is everything going to be 3D printed eventually?
No, probably not. It's a different manufacturing process. So additive manufacturing like that is pretty cool for quick prototyping, but it doesn't have a lot of good like long-term strength. You really need to use like injection molding and other kinds of additive manufacturing to really build it out, or things like CNC where you're cutting away from material, subtractive manufacturing, like those kind of things typically will leave you with stronger end products.
On Star Trek, they had the replicator. But this is not 3D printing. It's
No.
very, very different type of
Changing atoms from
Right.
one thing to another. Yeah,
That's not that at all.
No, that'd
Yeah.
be neat though.
It would be very neat. So we're here at Automation, September. The Automation Nation goes way back.
Yep.
I mean, I'm good friends with Matt Natrab, and he's kind of started the whole thing, of course. But tell me where it's going and where it is.
Yeah. So my first Automation Nation was back in 2014, actually.
Wow.
Yep. But when I started here, it was Lab Tech, and Matt was there, and all the old guys, Brett and Greg, all of them were here all the time. And so it's definitely changed a lot over the years. The company's changed. What Automation Nation is and all the Nation events in general have kind of morphed back and forth a lot. Automation Nation has kind of gone away since we had IT Nation Secure come out, but now we brought it back. So this year really is our first year with
Full.
Automation Nation, right?
Yeah.
And so now it's all right now focused on the new hyper automation. So it's our workflows and Sidekick and AI and things. Hopefully we'll see more RMM specific things. I don't mean CW RMM, but I mean like automate or CW RMM or command, whatever specific items added, I'm hoping. So who knows where the future is at this point, though, right?
How important is automation to MSPs, do you think?
Oh, I think it's critical, right?
Yeah.
You can't really run your business if you're having to manually do everything. The more you can automate, the more you can grow, the more endpoints a technician can handle. I mean, that's the whole point behind RMM software in general, right?
Sure is.
So,
And it's interesting, like Secure, you mentioned that before, it kind of took over, but that's really security based. Automation Nation
is.
was more about automating lab
Yep.
tech, which is not called that anymore. So I'm glad it came back, and it's very popular. The MSP seem to like it.
Yep. So yeah, what happened was the geek community, right? Like not a bad term, right?
course
If you're
not.
one of the
Affectionate.
geeks,
Yes.
like I'm one of the
Me
geeks.
too.
I love to get in there.
Yeah.
So a lot of those people in the community, when the owners were sending them down to these conventions, it was okay. Well, we're sending them down. They're going to Automation Nation, and then IT Nation Secure became a thing. And so they were like, well, we're not going to send you to both. And so they're like, well, everything's security focused now. We're going to start bringing them to Secure. And so we still had some that wanted to do automate, but it just kind of, caused some issues with how many people are going to be there, right?
So the users demanded it? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know that I'd say.
And you wouldn't say that, no. But once it has been re-released, it's been well accepted.
So I think if we were to bring it back today, like it used to be, I think people would love it. Right now, you've got the MSP geek community, and used to be LabTech geek back in the day, but
Right.
now it's all different software. I'll let Martin talk about that a lot more since that's his
Sure.
thing. But like those guys put on a big convention that's very much like the old Automation Nation was. It's very much how do you do all these things? How do you use these tools to really optimize your flow and make things more efficient and make your techs more effective, right?
When I talk, Mark, when I talk to MSPs, three things keep them up at night, and it's been pretty consistent the last few years. And it's security is number one. They're afraid their clients are going to get, they click an email or something. Two is just human capital. If I have this great technician, if something happens to them, how am I going to replace them? And lastly is just growth. How am I going to grow? PE has infused all this money. They're more concerned about generating growth, sales, and marketing. Automation Nation almost seems to attack all three of those.
I could definitely see it doing that. Yes, yes, indeed.
Security.
Yeah. Yep, it hits on everything. Now I'm getting all in my head with this microphone in front of me.
Oh, no. Don't even think about it. Just look
I
at this.
gotcha,
Yeah,
I
you got
gotcha.
it. Your audio
So-
is fine.
Yeah, so it hits on security, definitely.
Yes.
It hits on make sure everybody's trained up in all the new technologies, including, of course, the big thing I hear about all the time is AI. Where's AI going to go? Is it going to take away our jobs? Is it going to make our jobs easier? What's going to happen with AI? And so we hit on a lot of AI topics. We're, of course, AI heavy, trying to pull in lots of things across the board for AI, right? We got Sidekick to do a lot of things inside of PSA. We've got RPA bots that help you automate a lot of things. What I'm hoping is that next we'll have some AI that'll help us build these workflows and things that we're seeing and that we're building out manually. Let us, AI that stuff.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, I mean, we have to talk about AI and how close it is to just automation. Are they hand in hand? Is one part of the other? What's the relationship there?
So I think they're separate, right? So you have automation, you have your automation engine, whatever that is. So your scripting engine, your monitors, whatever component you're running in the background. But then how do you create that thing to begin with, right? So maybe you have a monitor that detects a problem with a service running, and then you have a script that you've created that goes and fixes that service. Well, you can manually create all that, and that's fine. But to that issue where you have those high-level techs that are in demand and they leave, what do? Nobody really knows this special software that's running the script now. Well, you can leverage AI to help you generate scripts that you need and help you automate creating these things. It makes it all easier to do.
And that second point of human capital, automation can really help in taking care of a lot of the lower tasks that can be automated. It can almost, people tend to try to hire people for some of these tasks, and that could be really automated really well.
Yep. The other advantage of that is you get to level up your techs, right? So instead of you having your, lots of tier 1 guys, a few tier 2 guys, and then a couple like elite tier 3, instead you can ditch your tier 1. You can have all this automation take care of that. You can get your really good people from your tier 1 team and bring them up to being tier 2s. And you can take your good people from your tier 2 and get them up into tier 3, right? Because you end up with additional revenue happening. You have less capital or less money needed for the lower end staffing, and it really kind of helps people like the company more. They want to stay longer because they're getting to do cool stuff. It's not, okay, well, Janice from the front desk needs her printer score, restart it again. It's like, great. They want to do interesting work. I know I've been in IT for 26 years, and that's always the thing. You
Really?
get in a job where, it's the same monotonous, clicking this thing every day. It gets super boring. But let me build stuff. Let me get in there and work on crazy, weird issues, and that'll keep me interested a lot longer.
So you started 26 years ago in Rhode Island?
No, I actually started in the Air Force. So I was in Oklahoma was my first base. Yep.
I don't hear any more Rhode Island in your voice, Mark.
No, I worked really, really hard. So I found my last Rhode Island word maybe 4 years ago.
What was it?
An Appalachian.
Instead of an
It's-
appellation?
No, instead of an apple orchard,
Oh.
I'd say orchard.
Oh,
You
orchard,
go to the
of course,
apple
it's
orchard, you go
orchard,
pick
yeah.
the apples.
Yes.
And
yes.
I didn't realize I was saying it wrong, and my wife looked at me and she goes, "An apple what?" And I'm like, "An orchard." And yeah, it took me
That's
a
it.
while to get the orchard.
Right, orchard.
Because down here it's just the orange grove,
That's
right?
right. It's not even, yeah. Yeah, there's people don't realize the difference between Rhode Island and Boston. I mean, it's similar, but my
It
wife
is.
my ex-wife went to Brown, so I was surrounded by a lot of people in Rhode Island. It's different. You can-
It is.
yeah.
It's the same thing with the New York. People confuse that
No,
too.
oh my
But
goodness,
for
yeah.
me, I always said Rhode Island is like if you take a Boston accent and a New York accent. You take the worst parts of the two of them, you cram them together, you get the Rhode Island accent.
Mark, what's the future of Automation Nation?
So, with any luck, we'll continue to see this grow. We'll see more of the techs, less of the owners, really, unless it's an owner-operator. But more techs here, more getting into, how to use, not just how to use the software and doing classes on that, but like how to do advanced things. Like one of my favorite classes back in the day was a scripting 301 class that a guy named Scott Logan put on. He was like one of the architects of Automate back in the day. It was really, really interesting. You kind of learned how to like deep dive into really advanced stuff in scripting and how to troubleshoot these things after. And so people left and they'd get home and they'd be able to build these things. They'd know how to kind of troubleshoot it. It put lots of cool thoughts in their heads on like what they can do to make their jobs easier.
What's the difference between scripting and coding?
So scripting, you've got your script editor, and it's a lot of like you select from the menu and you say, I want to run this command. And then, maybe you select that command. Maybe you have to type in the command. Like at most, you're probably talking like a basic shell command or a basic SQL select, SQL execute command, but nothing crazy. When you're talking coding, we're talking you're writing in a different language. So C#, VB, ASP.NET, whatever it is. And you're actually building like an entire application when you're doing those.
If anybody's listening who's actually a small business owner and they're not really into tech, automation can still help them dramatically. How do we make that? How do we steelman that? How do we convince them that automation can really level you up?
Yep. So, like I said previously, there's a couple things. So first is it reduces the amount of man hours
Yeah.
you need, right? Like that's the biggest thing there. It's time saver, right? I go ahead, if I'm doing the same action every day, same 5-10 actions every day, and they're taking me, an hour every day, and I spend, 2 hours and I automate that thing. Now I never need to do that action again. It's just done for me. And the more of those automated actions you can put in, more things you're doing with like your scripts and your monitors and just auto fixes, the more time's freed up for your technicians, the more time they can spend working with your customers directly and like have that more warm like feel to them. And then on the other side of it, it helps your technicians actually get more into how to automate things. They learn the process of how to pick apart an issue, break it down into steps, and then break down those fixes into steps that they can then automate. And it'll help them kind of keep growing in their position versus just kind of always stuck in that monotonous action over and over again. They can kind of progress on, they can take additional classes and really kind of level up.
Are you a process guy?
I'd say I'm pretty process oriented.
Because even when you're making your beer, there's a process.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, is what you do more art or science?
Oh, I would say it's all more art, right?
Really?
Like I try and use like the half-step method. You take whatever the issue is, you hack it in half and see, okay, well, if I turn off this half, I'm just looking at this part, is the problem still there? Yeah, then okay, it's in this half. If the problem goes away, then it's probably in that second half. But outside of that, all of this stuff's very nuanced and arty, right? You gotta kind of just feel with it and go with the flow with most things in IT.
It's interesting. If you're process, I would think you'd be more science, but you're more art.
Yeah, I mean,
There's no right answer, right?
There's not.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it would make sense. I would
Yeah.
agree. But even with computers, right? Computers should be all science.
Right.
But at the end of the day, turn it off, turn it back on,
Right.
fixes 90% of the stuff. I mean, why is that? That's not really the fix. There's some weird nuance in there that's doing it. There's a memory leak. There's some DLL that's crashing in the back end. There's some problem that's there, and you got to find it. So part of it is, methodical going through it to find those things, but it's hard to teach. Like, you can't, if somebody doesn't have the mindset for troubleshooting, it's very, very hard to teach that. Hiring somebody who has that mindset and is able to troubleshoot anything is going to be a lot easier to bring on. I used to be one of the managers on our support team, and I did a lot of hiring. And that was one of those things that we found was we would hire people who were like fresh out of college. They had their degree, degree in some kind of IT field, and teaching them how to use Automate and how to troubleshoot Automate was difficult if they didn't have a background in troubleshooting already.
Interesting.
Versus if I can say, hey, my refrigerator's making a weird noise, what should I do? Or I've got, whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter what the little widget is. Like, I've got a little box that you click a button and it pops open the top. Well, how do I troubleshoot that if it's not working? Like, being able to just move your mind around those things is helpful.
And can that be learned?
It can be, but it takes a lot more effort. It's a lot easier to find somebody who has that kind of innate ability and then teach them the specific thing for the role that they need.
Back when I was a kid in the late 70s, early 80s, we taught ourselves basic, right? And we'd have really smart people in the classes in high school, and they just couldn't figure it out. Just didn't have that knack. I don't know.
Yep.
It's just something, and I don't know, things kind of process. And so, Mark, I started my MSP back in the 90s, and I wasn't paying attention to myself. I ended up was working way too much. I got myself up to 340 pounds. Yeah, the doctor said to me, if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. My daughter was just born. Spent the next 6-7 months, lost the weight. People ask me how. Like, there's some secret. I always say discipline. That's how I got focused. I got willpower. So how does discipline play a role in your life, Mark?
I mean, sort of the same thing, right? I mean, it's making sure that you stay in a routine, making sure that you're able to get your tasks done, especially like my role now is not working tickets, right? So when you're working tickets, that's all easy. You come in for the day, you're just looking at your board and you're doing your tickets. Now it's a lot more, it's managing people, it's managing relationships with different partners and MSPs, trying to make sure that everything's kind of flowing, and you really need to be good at like time management and, like I said, staying disciplined and not letting it snowball off and let your attention get pulled off into different things. You want to, stay laser focused on your tasks at hand.
Very cool. Mark, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Nice.
Be
to meet
well.
you. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources, and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations.